What would you do if someone mocked your dead mother, just to get a laugh? What if a school bully grabbed your bag while everyone stood and watched and said nothing? Would you stay silent? Or would you finally fight back? Watch Jasmine's story unfold, and if it moves you, like this video and subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories. The morning sun cast long shadows on the cracked pavement, but Jasmine Carter stood tall, alone. She was at the far edge of the Parkwood High bus stop, backpack hugged tight to her shoulders, earbuds in but no music playing. She'd learned it made things easier, made her less of a target, or at least made it easier to pretend she didn't hear them. They were coming. She felt them before she saw them. The cadence of cocky footsteps, the sharp pop of cheap cologne in the air, and the low, cruel laughter echoing off the brick school wall. Chase Rucker led the pack. Golden-haired, blue-eyed, smug. His varsity jacket gleamed in the sun like a badge of untouchable power. Behind him trailed Brett, tall with a phone already in hand, and Logan, stocky and quiet but never absent when it mattered. Chase's eyes locked on Jasmine like a laser. "Well, well," he smirked, "if it isn't our favorite janitor girl." Jasmine didn't move. Her grip on the backpack straps tightened, fingers curling in. "Those shoes new," Chase mocked, nodding toward her scuffed black sneakers. "Or did the trash bag you pulled them from come with accessories?" Brett let out a sharp laugh and lifted his phone. "Yo, this lighting is perfect. Jasmine, give us a smile for the camera." Logan snorted. "She probably thinks she's better than us now, but come on, know your place." Jasmine's jaw tightened. Then came the one thing that burned more than their words. "Your mom ever clean hospital floors with that same look?" Chase taunted, stepping closer. "Oh wait, guess she's not cleaning anything anymore, huh?" The world stilled. That line about her mom. Chase reached out, casually yanking at the strap of her backpack. Jasmine stepped back, but not before he tugged once, forcing her forward slightly. Brett zoomed in with his phone. "Dang, bro, she's shaking. You got her." And still the others watched. Students lined up around them, silent. Some looked away. Others chuckled, low and ashamed. Not one said a word. Jasmine's hands trembled at her sides, but her eyes stayed steady. She looked at each of them, one by one, and something inside her, something old and buried, began to shift. She didn't speak. Not yet. But her silence wasn't fear this time. It was gathering. Jasmine walked through the school gates the way she walked through most days. Shoulders slightly forward, gaze soft but alert, like a deer that had learned where not to step. Her movements were careful, never drawing too much attention. She didn't slouch, but she never stood too tall either. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She mastered the art of invisibility, not out of fear, but out of weariness. She wasn't weak. She was just tired. Tired of standing out for all the wrong reasons. Tired of being the only in a hallway full of polished privilege, only black girl in her AP math class, only student without a car in the junior year parking lot, only one still using a hand-me-down backpack with a broken zipper. Most days, she let things slide. The comments, the stares, the silence. She'd remind herself, let it go. This will pass. You're almost out. College was less than 2 years away. If she just kept her head down, kept her grades up, she could leave Parkwood High behind like a bad dream. At home, it was different. Her Aunt Lena didn't believe in keeping your head down. "Tired don't mean quiet, baby," she'd say while rewrapping her police duty belt. "You gotta pick your battles, but when the time comes, you better be ready to win." Jasmine knew her aunt meant well. Lena had taken her in after Jasmine's mom passed away. She was all structure and steel, coffee at 5, Krav Maga lessons at 6, bed by 10. A woman of rules, but never without heart. And Jasmine, she had followed those rules, never fought back, never raised her voice, never gave them a reason to call her angry. But something shifted that morning. It was Chase's smirk. It was that line about her mother. It was the way no one spoke up. And deep down, Jasmine knew today wasn't going to pass, not this time. She could still remember the smell of antiseptic, too sharp, too clean, too late. It was the night her mother died. A Tuesday. Cold. Rain pooling along the gutters outside their apartment like the city was trying to cry for her. Her mom had collapsed in the hallway after a double shift, nurse shoes still on, name tag still clipped. Jasmine called 911. Waited longer. The dispatcher's voice had been calm, too calm, almost rehearsed. "We're prioritizing other areas right now," they said. Other areas. Other zip codes, other people. The ambulance didn't come fast enough. By the time they reached the hospital, the staff barely looked at her mother's chart before sighing. She should have come in earlier. Her mother worked in that very hospital, cleaned its beds, held its patients' hands, changed their bandages. But in the end, all they saw was a tired black woman from the wrong side of town. At the funeral, Jasmine wore her mother's old scarf. She didn't cry, not then. She just stood still, frozen. A statue among mourners who whispered words like shame and so sudden, like death had surprised them but not her. Back at school, the comments came casual and thoughtless. "Wait, your mom was a janitor." "No, she cleaned hospitals, right? Isn't that like the same?" "I thought nurses had to go to college." She never corrected them. It didn't feel worth it. Then Aunt Lena stepped in. She moved Jasmine into her small 2-bedroom house, repainted the walls, added double locks on the front door. She didn't believe in pity. She believed in preparation. Lena taught her how to fight, not just kicks and grapples, though Jasmine learned those too, bruises blooming like medals across her forearms. She taught her how to breathe under pressure, how to assess threat, how to stand tall even when trembling. "Don't fight to win," Lena always said. "Fight when someone forgets you're human." Jasmine had gone 3 years without ever needing it, but when Chase smirked at her that morning when he said her mom's name like a punchline, something unspooled inside her. She wasn't 10 anymore, she wasn't helpless, and she wasn't going to let them forget who she was. Not again. The next morning, the wind had a bite to it. Jasmine stood at the same bus stop, same cracked pavement, same stretch of chain-link fence humming in the breeze. But this time, her hands weren't clenched around her backpack. They were open, relaxed, ready. She saw them coming before she heard them, Chase in the lead like always, with Brett's phone already angled for the day's highlight reel. Logan trailed behind, chewing on a straw like nothing mattered. Jasmine didn't move. Chase stopped just inches from her. His smile was lazy, confident, the same smirk that haunted her thoughts the night before. "Missed us, janitor girl," he said, reaching for the strap of her backpack again. Only this time, he didn't touch her. She touched him. In one swift motion, Jasmine stepped into him, grabbed his wrist and twisted it outward in a fluid arc. Chase gasped, caught completely off guard. She pivoted on her heel, dragging his arm down with force and locking it behind his back. "Hey, what the hell?" he choked out, stumbling. Brett lowered the phone, surprised. "Whoa, chill," he lunged forward, but Jasmine was faster. She released Chase, stepped sideways, and caught Brett by the forearm. A quick turn, a shift of weight, and she sent him tumbling off balance into the dirt. His phone clattered across the sidewalk. Logan blinked. "You've got to be kidding." He took one step, but Jasmine met him with a straight, firm kick to the torso, not enough to injure, but enough to push him back off his footing. He stumbled, stunned, arms out. Then silence. The kind of silence that only falls when the world has just been slapped awake. Students around them stopped mid-sentence, mid-scroll, mid-laugh. Phones hovered in the air, forgotten. The girl in the red hoodie froze with a breakfast bar halfway to her mouth. Chase, furious and red-faced, recovered first. "You think this makes you tough?" He snarled, lunging forward with both arms. "Bad move." Jasmine ducked low, grabbed his wrist again, and used his momentum against him. With a sharp pivot and a burst of power from her legs, she flipped him clean over her shoulder. He hit the pavement hard, back first, with a loud thud that echoed across the lot. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Holy!" Chase groaned, trying to sit up but couldn't. Jasmine stepped forward, eyes steady, voice calm. "Don't ever touch me again." And just like that, no one laughed. No one mocked. For the first time in years, Jasmine wasn't the one being watched. She was the one commanding silence. The sound of the school bus pulling up was louder than usual. Brakes hissed. Doors creaked open. The engine grumbled low, almost reluctant to interrupt what had just happened. Jasmine didn't move at first. She didn't need to. The crowd that had formed around her, a loose circle of curious, silent spectators, parted slowly. Not a single word. Not a single hand raised to stop her. She walked forward with her chin lifted, eyes focused ahead, every step steady. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't smiling. But she wasn't shrinking either. Behind her, Chase lay sprawled on the pavement, groaning as he tried to sit up. Brett was still trying to dust himself off, looking between his phone and the cracked sidewalk. Logan didn't say a word. His mouth hung open slightly, like his brain hadn't caught up yet. The bus driver blinked in surprise as Jasmine climbed aboard but didn't ask a thing. Inside, the conversations halted like someone had hit pause. Heads turned. Phones dropped into laps. Jasmine stepped into the aisle, every student watching, some in awe, some in disbelief, some just stunned into silence. Then from near the back, a soft sound broke the tension. Clap, clap, clap. It came from a younger girl, freshman maybe, her eyes wide, her hands tentative but certain. She didn't say anything, just clapped. A ripple moved through the bus. Some exchanged glances. A few nodded. Jasmine didn't acknowledge them. She didn't have to. She slid into a seat near the middle, set her backpack down beside her, and let out a slow, silent breath. Her hands were still trembling, but not from fear. For the first time in a long, long while, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel invisible. She felt rooted, like maybe she belonged here after all. The cafeteria buzzed with low chatter, the clatter of plastic trays, and the ever-present hum of vending machines. But beneath it all was a quiet tension, like the room had inhaled that morning and still hadn't exhaled. Jasmine stepped into the cafeteria, her tray held steady, though her stomach wasn't interested in food. Eyes followed her, glancing up quickly then darting away. The whispers weren't as loud now. They didn't sting like they used to, but she still felt them, those glances, that weight. She scanned the room, looking for a spot she could sink into. Alone, as always. But before she could take a step, a voice, small but clear, rose beside her. "Is this seat taken?" She turned. A girl stood there, hesitant, hugging her own tray like a shield. It was Mei Chen. Jasmine knew her name from English class. Quiet girl, always reading, always avoiding eye contact. Jasmine couldn't remember the last time they'd shared more than a glance. "No," Jasmine said. "It's not." Mei slid into the seat across from her. For a while they ate in silence. No questions, no tension, just quiet. Then Mei spoke, barely above the hum of the room. "I saw what you did. This morning." Jasmine didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. Mei's fingers curled around her juice carton. "Last year, 2 guys cornered me in the library, called me virus girl, knocked my books on the ground. No one stopped them. No one even looked at me." Jasmine's breath caught in her chest. She looked at Mei fully now, really saw her. Small frame, nervous hands, eyes that held stories she hadn't told yet. "I just picked everything up," Mei continued, "and left. I didn't cry, not then, but it stayed." Jasmine nodded slowly. "Yeah, it always does." A pause, a breath. "I'm tired," Jasmine said, voice low but firm. "Of pretending it doesn't hurt, of walking smaller, of letting them define me before I even speak." Mei's eyes shimmered, but she didn't blink them away. "You don't have to shrink, not anymore." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a shared knowing. A mirror held up gently between two strangers who suddenly weren't strangers anymore. "You were brave," May whispered. "No," Jasmine replied. "I was just done." They sat a while longer, the noise of the lunchroom fading into background static. And when Jasmine stood to leave, she didn't expect anything. But May stood with her. Not behind, not beside, but with her. For the first time in years, Jasmine didn't walk out alone, and somehow that moment felt louder than the morning silence. By the next morning, Parkwood High was buzzing, not with the usual mindless gossip about who kissed who at Friday's party or what brand of sneakers someone wore, but with her name. "Did you hear? Jasmine Carter flipped Chase like a WWE move." "No way. Chase Rucker, he got rocked. Whole squad got suspended. For real." It was the kind of story that normally stayed in whispers, but this one spread like wildfire, fueled by snippets of blurry phone footage and fragments of witness accounts that only made the legend grow. Principal Mason took action before the day was out. Chase, Brett, and Logan were suspended for 2 full weeks, but the punishment didn't stop there. They were assigned community service, required to attend sensitivity training, and, most shocking of all, ordered to deliver a public apology in front of the entire junior class. It was the first time anyone at Parkwood could remember a popular white athlete being publicly held accountable. The message was clear: your jersey doesn't make you untouchable anymore. Jasmine hadn't asked for any of it. She didn't file a complaint. She didn't march into the office demanding justice. She didn't have to. The truth spoke for itself. And yet, something else happened that she hadn't expected. People started reaching out. A girl from the track team stopped her near the lockers and whispered, "Thank you." A boy she'd never spoken to before handed her a note that just said, "I saw what they did to my sister once. I froze. I won't next time." Even teachers seemed different. They looked at her longer, like they were seeing her for the first time, not as another quiet black girl in the 3rd row, but as someone with a voice and the courage to use it. Then came the assembly. The school auditorium filled with restless students. But instead of lectures, there was something else, a new initiative introduced by the students themselves. May stood on stage, heart pounding, voice shaking slightly but strong. And next to her, quiet and steady, was Jasmine. "Speak up," May announced. "A space for students to talk about what they've been through and what they still carry, not just for victims, but for anyone tired of being silent." No claps at first, just silence. Then 1, then 2, then the whole room. Later, when Jasmine walked through the halls, something was different. No more stares dripping with mockery. No more laughter behind her back. Some students smiled. Some gave her space. A few whispered her name, not like a rumor, but like respect. She didn't feel like a hero. She didn't want to, but she felt real. She felt like she mattered. And for the first time, Parkwood High felt a little more human. The late afternoon sun cast golden lines across the edge of the football field, catching on the metal bleachers like threads of fire. Jasmine walked alone, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her pace steady. The air smelled like freshly cut grass and distant sweat, remnants of practice long finished. She didn't come this way often. Too many memories lingered near the field. Too many afternoons watching Chase and his crew throw a ball like they owned the world, laughter echoing as if the field had been built for them alone. But today was different. Today, the bleachers were empty, all except for one figure, Chase. He sat on the 2nd row, hunched forward, elbows resting on his knees. His varsity jacket hung loose around him like it didn't quite fit anymore. His hair, usually gelled and sharp, looked messier than she'd ever seen it. As she walked closer, his head lifted. Slowly, their eyes met. He looked at her, not with smugness, not with fire, just with something almost human, something like regret. His lips parted like he might say something, But Jasmine didn't stop. She didn't nod, didn't glare, didn't pause to hear what excuse or apology might come stumbling out. She just kept walking. Because the moment didn't belong to him. It belonged to her. Every step she took past that field was one more step away from fear, away from silence, away from the version of herself she had been forced into. She didn't need an apology. She didn't need him to understand. She needed peace. And in that quiet afternoon, as the wind picked up and the sun dipped just a little lower, she felt it, settling inside her like a soft exhale. I didn't need to win, Jasmine thought. I just needed to stop being afraid. And now she had. Have you ever stood by and watched someone get bullied and felt like your silence spoke louder than their pain? If Jasmine's story made you pause, even for a moment, leave a comment below. Tell us what you saw, what you felt, what you wish you had said. Because silence protects no one, but your voice. It just might save someone. And if you believe in stories that stand up, speak out, and strike deep, subscribe to my channel. This is more than storytelling, it's truth-telling, and we're just getting started.